All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Leroy Comrie. I'm honored to be chair of the New York State Senate's Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions. I'm joined today by the chair of the Transportation Committee. We're doing a joint hearing regarding the MTA and East Side and Penn Access. We have with us Senators, I'm not in any necessary order, but just how they appear on my screen. Senators Kevin Thomas, Todd Kaminsky, Brad Hoylman, John Liu, and Anna Kaplan. We are here joined right now by Jana Lieber, who is in charge of MTA development. And so we have been wanting to have this hearing for some time to look at all of the issues around the access to the east side for into Penn Station, and also to the dealing with the issues of the projects that would deal with the west side access into the Penn Station and Moynihan Station as well. So I look forward to a robust hearing. We expect a lot of testimony from various people. And in order to not delay the hearing and to move it forward, I'm going to ask my colleague, Senator Tim Kennedy, to make an opening statement. Then we'll hear from Jana Lee. Okay? Or if any other members, I'm sorry, want to make an opening statement, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Leroy Comrie, and good morning, everybody, to my colleagues and to all of the participants in today's public hearing. I'm Senator Tim Kennedy. I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, and I'm very proud to be co-chairing this important hearing with my colleague, Senator Comrie. And thanks in advance to everyone that'll be providing testimony and insight today in both the East River Tunnel repairs and the East Side Access project. We all know how devastating Superstorm Sandy was to New York overall, but specifically to the New York City subway and Long Island Railroad customers. Flooding occurred in many areas of the MTA, but especially in the L and F train tunnels and the East River tunnels serving the LIRR. And while the L and the F train tunnels have been repaired, repairs to the East River tunnels we know still have not started. And despite nearly a decade since Sandy, and despite continued corrosion in the tunnels from its previous exposure to salt water, so we have much work to be done. 2017 report from Comptroller DiNapoli said the number of trains delayed or canceled because of the problems with the tubes or switches increased 72%. And that's an unacceptable number for thousands of LIRR commuters who rely on the East River tunnels daily for an on-time and convenient commute. And Amtrak, however, the owner of the tunnels, has previously stated it must wait for East Side access to be complete before starting repairs on the East River tunnel. And even when tunnel repairs commence, Amtrak has said it will have to close one tunnel at a time while repairing. This will only add delays into repairing the tunnels, and once repairs start, it'll threaten delays within the entire system. So let alone this solution threatening the timeline of constructing 4 new Metro North stations in the Bronx are areas considered transit deserts, with thousands of residents looking for a more convenient trip into Manhattan are located. And other parties have suggested that an alternative solution to fixing the tunnels happen, one that wouldn't require waiting for East Side access to be complete and would not necessitate closing one tunnel at a time. So I want to be very clear here, getting to work on the tunnels immediately, especially while ridership is still rebounding, and the success of the LIR's ridership recovery will hinge on its on-time performance, is absolutely necessary. We cannot wait any longer. The LIRR riders and all New Yorkers deserve better. And so I'm looking forward to examining this situation here with all of you today, listening to all sides of this so that we can come up with an acceptable solution. Again, I want to thank all of the participants and my colleagues for participating here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kennedy, for filling in all the details. And Senator Todd Kaminsky has a few words that he wants to say.
I just thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Chairs Comrie and Kennedy for their tireless advocacy on behalf of Long Island Railroad riders. Their attention to detail and concern has been tremendous. This hearing is another example of that. And I look forward to getting at why East River Tunnel repairs have lagged the way they have. And this is an urgent issue that has not gotten the urgency it deserves. This hearing will help with that, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I'm glad again. I want to thank my colleagues for being here on this hearing. This is a long overdue hearing that we've been trying to have so that the public can be aware of the issues. So now we hear from Janno Lieber from the MTA. Good morning, Mr. Lieber. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Senator, and good morning to the entire panel. My name is Janno Lieber, and I'm the president of MTA Construction and Development, the group within the agency responsible for all of our capital construction work. I want to add my thanks to Chair Comrie and Chair Kennedy for the invitation to speak with you all. They are great advocates for the New York metropolitan region's transportation system, but also for the statewide transportation system. And I'm glad to be speaking to you about some of the MTA key infrastructure projects, especially those that overlap with Amtrak. Mass transit's the lifeblood of New York, and we need a strong system to power our recovery. Under the Cuomo administration, New York has demonstrated national leadership by investing in transformational mega projects like Moynihan Station, Second Avenue Subway, East Side Access, Third Track, and most recently, Metro North Penn Station Access, which we want to begin building this year. But there's much more to be done and more investment is needed. Today, we have a once-in-a-generation infrastructure opportunity with the new administration in Washington, and we thank President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, and our hometown hero, Chuck Schumer, for their support. It's a new day to advance transit projects that will turbocharge the post-COVID economy and address overdue challenges of social equity and climate change. I want to thank the governor and all of you in the legislature for allowing us to continue working on transportation infrastructure during COVID by classifying MTA projects as essential transit work. And huge thanks also to our partners in labor and in the contracting community who worked very quickly with us to establish and enforce vital safety protocols so that all this construction we did and the jobs that that work provided could continue while effectively managing COVID risk. In 2020, the year most of the economy ground virtually to a halt during the pandemic, the MTA had, based on many metrics, one of its most productive construction years ever. East Side Access. Today, we're on the cusp of transformational upgrade to our commuter railroads due to several key projects. Top of the list is East Side Access. I'm pleased to report that it's on target for completion at the end of 22 as planned. This project is going to allow Long Island Railroad commuters to travel directly to the center of East Midtown, to Grand Central Terminal, reducing commutes for many people by up to 40 minutes a day. When some of LIRR's service moves to Grand Central with the opening of East Side Access, it will create slots in Penn Station for Metro North service on the Amtrak-owned Hellgate line, which runs from New Rochelle to the East Bronx into Queens and then through those East River tunnels into Penn Station. This huge construction effort that will make this possible, which includes 4 new stations in the East Bronx, a transit desert, I should add, is the project that we call Metro North Penn Station Access. In 2022, we also expect to complete the Long Island Railroad mainline expansion, also known as Third Track, the project which will allow for an even greater increase in peak service between Long Island and Manhattan. The additional capacity provided by East Side Access and Third Track will allow the Long Island Railroad to begin offering meaningful peak time reverse commuting service for the first time ever. That is essential to the future of Long Island's economy. Another overlooked benefit of East Side Access is that by providing another way for LIRR passengers to get to Midtown, it makes it possible for us to finally undertake the next urgently needed mega project, the construction of the Gateway Penn expansion and the reconstruction of existing Penn Station. Together with Moynihan Train Hall, these twin improvements to Penn Station are necessary to create the world-class Empire Station complex envisioned by Governor Cuomo. Because Penn Station expansion is essential to the long-delayed Gateway project because it will provide the tracks and platforms needed to accommodate additional trains between New Jersey and New York once the Gateway tunnels are completed. But Penn expansion will primarily be used by Amtrak and New Jersey Transit, and the new Moynihan train hall only serves a portion of LIRR riders, those who used the far west side of the Penn complex. So existing Penn must be brought into the 21st century for the 600,000 New Yorkers, LIRR, Metro North, and New York City Transit customers who have no choice but to continue to use existing Penn Station. You all know that today's Penn Station is subpar and that there are serious concerns about safety, crowding, and wayfinding, some of the many reasons that Penn Station ranks high on the list of New Yorkers' most hated places. That brings me to the East River tunnels, a central focus of this hearing. The tunnels carry a huge proportion of Long Island Railroad trains. They are key to delivering the benefits that I've discussed, increased service and reverse commuting. It's no secret that we at the MTA have urged Amtrak to repair their tunnels as soon and as quickly as possible with the lowest impact on customers. As everybody also knows, Superstorm Sandy did huge damage to regional infrastructure, particularly those under river tunnels that Senator Kennedy alluded to. And just like Amtrak's tunnels, the MTA's own 11 under river tunnels were flooded with millions of gallons of salt water that damaged their structural integrity and wiped out all manner of systems. But while Amtrak's tunnels remain a work in progress, as of this past March, the MTA has actually finished rehabilitation on all 11 MTA tunnels. The last MTA tunnel completed was the Rutgers Tube, which carries the F train. This project was the first to fully utilize the design build project delivery approach, and we applied the same strategies pioneered during the L train project to get it done on time and on budget, always working only on nights and weekends in order to minimize impact to riders. Our project team used the same cable racking system and other state-of-the-art technologies to finish the job in record time, despite the challenges of the global pandemic. It paid dividends for our riders who at the time were mostly essential workers commuting to their critical jobs on the front lines. We have tried to persuade Amtrak to take the same approach with its tunnels, which carry trains from the Long Island Railroad and New Jersey Transit, in addition to Amtrak trains. While Amtrak engineers have adopted some of our recommendations, they still favor taking a more cautious approach that requires 2 complete year-long tunnel closures. It's our hope that Amtrak will reconsider their position so that we can minimize the impact on customers. The best way to do that is to avoid full closures to the maximum extent possible. When a tunnel is closed, fewer trains can get in and out of Manhattan, and there's less flexibility to recover from disruptions, delays, and all of this makes service less reliable, a result that's good for nobody. This situation that we're discussing speaks to a bigger challenge in operating service on the Northeast Corridor. Amtrak runs the smallest number of trains, but they control most of the assets and the decision-making. The Long Island Railroad is by far the biggest user of the East River tunnels, 127 trains in the peak period compared to Amtrak's 28. Yet we have little decision-making power, even though we pay millions in maintenance fees for the privilege of running our trains, even though Amtrak expects us to fund a big chunk of other costs, and even though the state of New York just finished providing the majority of the resources necessary to build Moynihan Station, Amtrak's new flagship station at the center of the National Rail Network. New York State provided $1.3 billion of the total $1.6 billion out of both grants and loan guarantees. And yet we still have some of these decision-making imbalances. This is one of the profound issues we hope to address at the federal level now that we have a champion in the Senate Majority Leader slot, and that Secretary Buttigieg is leading USDOT alongside former MTA board member Polly Trottenberg, who's now the Deputy Secretary of Transportation. This is a matter of equity. Amtrak is hugely important to the economic dynamism of the entire East Coast megalopolis. But it's not fair that our much more numerous MTA customers, who represent the tremendous economic and racial diversity of our region, are being impacted by decisions favoring a much smaller number of Amtrak users who, if we're honest, tend to be much better off business and leisure travelers. We hope that under the Biden administration, the federal government will begin to rethink this model so that both Amtrak and the commuter railroads can serve their important missions on a more equal footing. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Questions from members? Senator Kaminsky, I'll start with you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair Comrie. Mr. Lieber, do you have any understanding of the process or timeline through which Amtrak has decided not to use in-service replacement? In other words, there's news reports where they say, oh, the L train work is interesting. And then they have a reply to Chairs Comrie and Kennedy and some of us where they say they're not doing it. Do you know what's gone into any of those decisions? Are they shared with you their thinking on that?
I can only share with you, look, it's, again, none of this is a secret. After the L train approach was identified and we began to implement it, we immediately, I initiated discussions with Amtrak and said, look, the delay on the East River tunnels is having an effect on all of us, and we think that this approach, which was already proving successful at that point, could be utilized. And we had staff to staff, engineer to engineer, professional discussions, and they went on for a while. But in the end, we were unsuccessful in persuading Amtrak to adopt the approach that allowed them to not to have to close the tunnels. Remember, the L train, the success of the L train was that we figured out how to do the work, to do it quickly and also save some money, but to do it only nights and weekends, so that daily customers, and there are 300,000 L train riders who were relying on that train, so that they would not have their daily commutes affected. And that was very successful. And then we used it again on the F train, and it was, most people found it virtually invisible, the work that we did, and we managed to completely rehab that tunnel without closing down except nights and weekends. So that was what we were trying to persuade Amtrak to consider, but for a variety of reasons I don't fully understand, they rejected the engineering solutions that we were offering in favor of an approach that requires 2 year-long closures, one of each tunnel.
Can you tell us what gives you or your engineers confidence that that type of work can be done in the East River tunnels?
Well, this is not exotic, right? We said to Amtrak is, use the cable racking system. Don't demolish the entire bench wall. This is the linchpin issue, I believe, that Amtrak continues to believe that they want to demolish and rebuild the entire concrete bench wall that historically has encased power cables and some of the other systems. And our point to them is, take those systems, and this is what we did in the L train, take those cables and systems out, put them on racks on the tunnel wall, and figure out how not to have to demolish the whole bench wall, which is what is driving the closures. So we figured out on the L train how to stabilize some areas of the bench wall that were damaged with so-called FRP, which is a man-made structural plastic, which is very strong. And we were successful in doing all the work with doing very little demolition. And it's the scale of the demolition that I believe drives Amtrak's insistence on a full closure. So they have not adopted the recommendations that we made that would allow them not to demolish the entire bench wall and instead to be able to keep the tunnel open while you were doing night and weekend work.
Yeah, it would be one thing if they could shut the tunnels down right now and start it, but they're not even saying they can start that till East Side Access is done. And I am, that delay is obviously very, very concerning to me. With the limited time I have, John, I just want to turn to Penn Station and try to figure out Amtrak's role there. And I'm sure Senator Hoylman has more questions about what this will mean for Manhattan, but I'm obviously more concerned with the underground experience for Long Island Railroad commuters. We all know Penn Station, waiting under the big board. It's just a giant mess. You can't go anywhere. It's not safe. You have no idea where you are in the building. I have seen the plans of what you like to do under there. Some of it I think is very extraordinary and be welcomed by commuters. What does Amtrak need to do in order to help realize that vision? And are they working cooperatively to help Long Island Railroad commuters realize that?
Well, I want to, in fairness to Amtrak, I want to give credit. We've had a three-way design collaboration, so-called master plan effort with New Jersey Transit and Amtrak. And it has been, although there are disagreements, it has been pretty collaborative. What we've done is identified the opportunity to completely redo Penn Station. That means getting rid of the narrow passageways where, as you say, people are stuck waiting in these cramped circumstances, opening up not just the width of the corridors, but also the height of the ceiling so that it feels more like Moynihan Station or Grand Central instead of the horrible cramped we experience that New Yorkers have in Penn today. And we found two approaches. Amtrak and we have a slight difference on which is the better one. We like the one that is more open both vertically and horizontally. It gives people more room. There is a huge issue when you walk into Penn Station, you don't know where you are, you don't know where the exits are. That is a safety issue. You are disoriented because the navigation is so confusing and non-intuitive. Compare that to Moynihan or to Grand Central Station, where you walk in, you can see the gates, you can see the access to the track and platforms. There's clear signage, and it's just a completely different experience. Walking through Grand Central is ennobling. Walking into Penn Station is a horrible, demoralizing experience. And we want to change that. The key issue that you've raised is, will this be done soon? And the answer is, we believe it needs to be part of or connected to the whole gateway rebuilding, because the idea that we must get new tunnel capacity across the Hudson River, but to build a whole new facility that exclusively serves Amtrak and New Jersey Transit passengers, although it's needed, but leaving New Yorkers only to live in existing Penn Station doesn't seem fair, and we think that has to be part of the vision for Gateway to rebuild existing Penn.
Thank you.
Senator Kaminsky, are you done? Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I may come back for more, but I'll respect the clock. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members have questions?
Yeah, I'd like to propose a couple of questions here.
Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. Jano, thanks for your testimony. Very well said. I just want to ask you, how has working with Amtrak been in projects in the past, like the Moynihan Project, East Side Access, and the like?
Well, the Moynihan Project, I did not directly oversee in the final stretch. We had some serious involvement with it because of the Long Island Railroad aspects and otherwise, but I don't want to characterize it. It was successful, and we obviously got to the finish line. We're all proud of the outcome. I was there. I worked on Moynihan, believe it or not, in '99 and 2000, and did the original negotiation with Amtrak for an MOU, which is another story. Listen, Amtrak has a really important role in our regional transportation system, but it's no secret that we have struggled with them on a couple projects. The East Side Access Project, and I said it publicly when I did my review of that history in 2018, we had a lot of the challenges, not all, but a lot of the challenges that project has had is because they're rebuilding major Amtrak infrastructure, and they required to use Amtrak personnel to both oversee that work, in some cases to do that work, but Amtrak couldn't provide the people and the resources to allow work to go forward. So that resulted in delays and huge cost increases. I won't get technical. And I said to Amtrak that this is hundreds of millions of dollars of impact, and they said, well, look at our contract, we're not liable. And we're not going to file a lawsuit, but there is a principle of fairness and collaboration, which I have raised with them. and continue to raise with them. And now we've got the Penn Access Project, which is actually on Amtrak's Hellgate line. We want to serve the East Bronx, make sure that those people in, a 90% minority communities in the East Bronx, which are economically disadvantaged, have mass transit service, and Amtrak has never stopped in the Bronx. So we're looking to Amtrak to provide us with opportunity to do that work. They have to cost share with us. We haven't worked that out, and we need to get the work going. So that's another project that we're having a bit of a dialogue with, but we hope it will be resolved.
Well, your statement fits directly into my next question is to whether or not Amtrak historically has contributed their fair share of resources and labor to these projects. Can you answer
I mean,
that?
listen, we until literally Eastside Access, Amtrak's contribution was zero. We rebuilt, roughly $1 billion of Amtrak's rail infrastructure in Harold Interlocking, the busiest rail intersection in the United States. And based on the arrangement at that time, they just said, you have to do this for us, and we get to design it to our standards, and you pay. Now there is a cost-sharing arrangement that is effective, but we haven't managed to resolve what we think their share of state of good repair is. But the more important point that you should remember is, remember the Summer of Hell in 17. There was an Amtrak maintenance issue and infrastructure collapse that led to that. And yet Amtrak didn't have to pay for the consequences, the extra service for Long Island Railroad passengers, the ferries, and so on and so on. So there continue to be issues about economic fairness as well as, the collaboration of projects. I don't want to overdo it. Amtrak is a really important player in the future of our region and the entire East Coast, but we have to have a system where our riders, who represent 90% of the passengers, have an equal say and an equal influence on what happens.
Yeah, thanks, Jano. And look, we all agree that Amtrak is a absolutely significant and important imperative partner. They're going to have their say later on in this hearing, but we also need collaboration with the MTA, and that's what we're looking for. And to that point, I'm curious to know how negotiations have gone thus far with Amtrak on the scope and duration of the work.
Are you talking about the Penn Access Project in the
Yes.
Bronx, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're right now. We stopped the procurement during COVID because honestly, we didn't know if we had a capital program big enough to accommodate that mega project and many, many other things. We'd like to restart it. But one of the linchpins is reaching a cost allocation arrangement with Amtrak. So that is an issue that needs to be resolved. We still have some slightly more technical issues about scope and about whether we're going to get outages. We need more outages to do work efficiently and quickly. And those are open issues. I believe those are achievable. If everybody brings the right spirit to the negotiation, but there are major unresolved issues at this point.
And have they been receptive to all alternative types of repair to the tunnels? And I see my time's up, so I'm going to be respectful of the clock as well, but I'll leave you with this on top of the potential alternative repairs. I want to know if the MTA is in agreement with Amtrak that the best approach is to wait for East Side access to Grand Central, and if that is smart.
Yeah, well, I think my response to Senator Kaminsky suggested, what we said to Amtrak is, as soon as we figured out this L train approach, which did not require full closures, was working, we literally reached out to Amtrak immediately and started a professional engineering discussion about how that could be used for East River tunnels for exactly that reason. And so we were ultimately unsuccessful in persuading them, but we think it should have been started a while ago, and we still wanted to start now, honestly, before East Side Access comes online.
I will just leave you with this. Nothing kills a project like delays in time. So thank you, Jano, and I'll reserve my time for later as well.
Thank you. Senator Hellman, you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to both of the chairs and my colleagues for having this important hearing. Good to see you, Jano, Lieber. I've just a few questions. On East Side Access, the scheduled completion date, I believe, was December 2022, the last I
Yes.
heard. Is
Yes.
that still the scheduled completion date?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So you're not facing any more delays? I've heard rumors of delays.
It's-
There are none.
This is a struggle every day. I inherited 50 separate contracts running into each other. It is the model of how not to do projects. It was started long before any of you were in charge, and certainly before I was here. But we have fought through the issues, and we're determined to make that date, sir.
And in terms of costs, what are you looking at in terms of your projected costs? I believe at one point the latest was 11.1 billion, I think. Is that still what you're
Yes.
looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
And as I said, just so to quickly give you an update, we've got the concourse is 85% finished. The storage yard on the Queen side is 100% done. The track is 100% in. All of the structural work is done. We're really working on systems, and they're complicated, and I won't take you through it. We have 19,000 devices connected through 11 separate integration systems. But you're all welcome to come and take a look. This is a project that looks like a real train station.
And when you're up and running there, what will be your projected impact on Long Island Railroad passengers coming into Penn Station? I'm assuming riders will get off at Grand Central.
Yeah, and we have projections that we're going to get 150 to 200,000 riders at Grand Central with the new East Side Access Surface. It's adjacent to the highest concentration of well-compensated office jobs in the United States, and this is one of the frustrations for a lot of Long Islanders is they have to hoof it back from the west side from Penn if they work in the center of East Midtown. So it's going to get used. We would like to maintain a significant Penn service as well, which is why we are focused also on this East River Tunnels closure issue.
And then finally, about Empire Station Complex, which is in my district, and I appreciate all the information you've been sharing in connection with that. I'm very concerned about the land use process that is in place for that project, for the wider project, not just the Penn Station project. And in fact, I've introduced legislation that would create a land use review process so that the city actually has a role in that process. So I wanted to advise you of that. Just yesterday, I was speaking to one of the developers who is planning for the demolition of the historic Pennsylvania Hotel. They told me, and I know this may be someone outside of your purview because you're only focused on the Penn Station project itself, but just to let you know, they told me that the Pennsylvania Hotel might be demolished in the next year. And if the real estate market was not at the level they thought it should be, they would leave an empty parking lot where that hotel sits and put food trucks in its place. Do you think that's acceptable as an interim measure for this wider project?
Honestly, it really is outside my scope. The land use issues that I know you've been very active on are really outside my scope, and it wouldn't be helpful for me to speculate on what some private sector developer might or might not do. I understand that's important to you and the community, however.
Thank you. And then finally, could you explain why you have rejected through running as a concept for the project?
Sure. Well, just to be clear, we haven't rejected it at all. To the contrary, we are the concepts for improving Penn Station and the Gateway expansion that will connect with the Gateway tunnels actually preserve the opportunity for through running. They're designed to make sure that, for example, if you extended those tunnels eastward and to go ultimately to build a new tunnel under the East River that you could get under the 6th Avenue subway, which is a challenge from an engineering standpoint because of where it sits vertically. So we are very much protecting the future of through running. But all that we have said is that through running cannot provide an answer by itself. So I won't get technical, but that has been the consensus of the engineering professionals. It's reflected in the work that we've done together with Amtrak and NJT. But we are very much preserving it as an option for the future so that if the money showed up and people wanted to build additional East River tunnels, we could actually accomplish that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Luke, do you have any questions for the MTA?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions. First, it's always good to see General Lieber, and even better to hear from him straight from his mouth that the deadline of December 2022 is still on track for East Side Access completion, right? That's what you had said earlier.
Yes, sir.
Great. And just for the record, it was supposed to have been completed in 2009. And right now the cost overruns are approaching 3 times what the original estimates were. Those are not your doing, but we want to remind people that that was the original intent. So to Senator Kaminsky's and our Long Island colleagues' concerns, this is really long in the running. Now, your testimony basically pins the blame on MTA for additional unnecessary delays. What do you think they're going to say in response to what you're saying? You're saying basically that they can't see the light or cannot learn from the experience that the MTA has already garnered from the L train and F train tunnel rehab without having to shut down service.
Look, I think you meant that I was pinning the blame on Amtrak, not MTA, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You
Yeah,
said MTA.
putting the blame on Amtrak.
Amtrak.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me just be clear. The folks at Amtrak are my colleagues. I work with them all the time. I respect them, and the human relationships are great.
But
You're going to hear from Gary Williams, who's the chief engineer of Amtrak, who's a first-class person and professional. There's a fundamental disagreement among, we think that we've demonstrated the success of these approaches, and they should be embraced in light of the impact of not embracing them on the customer. That's it. There's no more, this is not, there's nothing else going on here other than we think that the demonstrated engineering success of our approach, because of the impacts of doing it the way they want to do, they should be more receptive to our approach. That is the scope of the dispute. But it has huge impacts to our customers, this decision. And if they, you're going to hear from them, but that is really what we urge them. We went with the people who had designed the L train, who had designed the F train approach. We showed them how again and again, and it didn't take. So that's where we are.
okay, so it's a difference in opinion as to how the engineering could work for the Amtrak tunnels as opposed to the 2 New York City Transit tunnels, the L train and the F trains. They're all going under the East River, right? So would they possibly be saying that the kind of tunnels that the Amtrak trains need are somehow different from the subway tunnels?
It's a good question. They're going to tell you, I believe, that the bench wall, they must have the bench wall, they must fully rebuild it, and they need a second bench wall on the other side of the tunnel. I don't really think it's productive for me to tell you why I think they're wrong. But I would say this, and the bigger picture is the MTA was also resistant to this idea. Remember, we were planning to shut down the L train, and we spent a couple of years planning to do it, and it was, in the end, the governor brought in these outside experts who said you didn't have to, and we tried their way, and it worked. So I'm not saying that we're that different than Amtrak. We needed to be persuaded, but we tried it out, it worked, and we think that they should follow suit.
Okay, well, it was clearly the right decision for the MTA to make. Let's see if we can convince Amtrak to use the experience that the MTA has already learned in those 2 other sub-East River tunnels. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Chair.
Sorry. Senator Thomas, do you have any questions? No, we have to wrap up because we want to.
No, I do not.
Okay, great. So, General Lieber, we wanted to hear from Amtrak and then come back to you. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
So, Tech Services, if you could queue up the Amtrak folks and we can have them make their presentation. Thank you. Tech Services, I didn't hear anything. Anybody respond?
Yes, I'm working to demote, and then I'll be bringing the next witnesses on. Please just hold.
Can someone from Tech Services help him out? Okay, we have. Okay, good morning, gentlemen. We have Mr. Newman and Mr. Williams from Amtrak. I want to thank you for joining, and let's see, Mr. Schultz, are we expecting anybody else from your team on this morning?
Mr. Crump, I believe he is there. So
okay, great. All right. My name is Leroy Comrie. I'm honored to be chair of the committee. We are on with the chair of the Corporations Committee. We have the chair of the Transportation Committee, Senator Tim Kennedy, on, as well as Senators John Liu, Ty Kaminsky, Kevin Thomas, Jim Gorin, Brad Hoylman. And we are here today to talk about the East Side access issues. We want to thank you for taking time to be on this morning. And I'm not sure which one of you are speaking first, so I'll leave that to you, gentlemen, to pick the speaking one.
well, I will begin, Senator. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Chair Comrie and Chair Kennedy, for the opportunity to testify today to the commitments that Amtrak has made and the plans we are developing for the work to restore our railroad infrastructure in New York, especially the tunnels under the East River. My name is Dennis Newman. I'm the Executive Vice President of Planning and Asset Development for Amtrak. I'm joined by Gary Williams, our Vice President and Chief Engineer, as well as Clavell Crump, Director of Capital Construction. Now, Clavell was one of the first on the scene after Superstorm Sandy flooded the East and North River tunnels in 2012, and he's been instrumental in removing the water and caring for the tunnels ever since. Today, we'll touch on the status of plans for rehabilitation of the East River Tunnel and related work in support of MTA projects such as East Side Access and Penn Station Access. These projects are all interdependent and must be closely linked if we are to realize our vision for a robust transportation network that supports not just the economy of America's largest city, but the rest of the Northeast Corridor between Washington and Boston, a territory that accounts for some 20% of America's GDP. The East River Tunnel serves as a single critical passenger rail link connecting Manhattan and Queens, providing access to Sunnyside Yard, Long Island, and New England for Amtrak, NJ Transit, and Long Island Railroad trains. The combination of age, extremely heavy use, antiquated design, and impacts from Sandy have created a set of interrelated conditions that must be holistically addressed in order to improve safety and reliability for the more than 800 daily train moves made by the three railroads. Amtrak is fully committed to comprehensively rehabilitating the East River Tunnel and has been a driving force advancing the engineering design, service planning, and stakeholder coordination on the project for years, while continuing to operate and maintain this century-old asset in cooperation with our railroad partners. After two of the tunnel's 4 tubes were inundated during Superstorm Sandy, Amtrak funded and launched a series of immediate remediation activities recommended in a 2014 assessment by HNTB, a world-renowned engineering consulting firm. These near-term activities continue today, while the long-term recommendations in the report were rolled into a comprehensive East River Tunnel rehabilitation program. The design of that program began in 2015 and will be complete later this year. The recommendations by HNTB included replacing and modernizing all electrical and mechanical systems and equipment, including improvements to the third rail used by Long Island Railroad and installation of a new overhead catenary power system used by Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Also removing the existing bench walls and replacing with newly reconfigured bench walls that conform to modern safety standards and significantly improve emergency egress for passengers and access for first responders and maintenance personnel. Removing antiquated and high maintenance tunnel ballast and rail systems and replacing with a state-of-the-art direct fixation rail system for the entire length. The East River tunnels are some of the last tunnels in New York to use ballasted track, which does not drain well, causing a host of water-related issues. And inspecting and repairing leaks and cracks in concealed areas behind the bench walls and under the track bed. Now, undertaking this package of work across the entire 2.5-mile length of 2 of the 4 tubes is uniquely challenging. As Gary will explain shortly, Amtrak's analysis points to an extended tube closure as the most reliable, efficient, and cost-effective method for ensuring comprehensive rehabilitation that will stand the test of time under extremely heavy use. Amtrak's design for this work, undertaken together with our consultant, Jacobs Engineering, named the #1 design firm in Engineering News Record, is on schedule for completion by the end of this year. Now, Amtrak is quite familiar with the concept of in-service refurbishment, as it is a practice commonly used in the railroad industry. For decades, Amtrak has employed such techniques to replace track and other systems and components throughout our network. We've learned that despite the allure of fewer planned train delays, in-service refurbishment can introduce the risk of far worse unplanned service interruptions and delays, which can have devastating consequences on passengers' lives. We've also learned that in-service refurbishment often fails to deliver the durability, reliability, and longevity needed for an asset as critical as the East River Tunnel. We saw direct evidence of that in New York Penn Station, where prior to 2017, years of in-service refurbishment on nights and weekends led to deferred maintenance and a growing backlog of capital investment in tracks, platforms, and other railroad infrastructure. In spring of that year, after several significant infrastructure-caused derailments in the station, Amtrak dramatically changed our approach, reducing service by all 3 railroads to allow sections of the station to be removed from service for weeks at a time, so full and comprehensive replacement of tracks, switches, signals, and other key infrastructure could take place. By closely coordinating this work with our partner railroads and extensively engaging with the public, we were able to manage the process successfully and minimize unplanned service disruptions. This process was repeated the following 2 summers with minimal public outcry, resulting in a far more reliable and resilient Penn Station than existed before. Now, given the number and variety of issues that require fixing in the East River Tunnel, in-service refurbishment is not practical. And while this approach was successfully used in the MTA's Canarsie L-Train Tunnel, the technical circumstances in the East River Tunnel are not an apples to apples comparison. As Gary will explain in a moment, the primary differences involve the 12,000 volt cables that run through the East River Tunnel, whereas the Canarsie tube's max voltage is 600 volts. The already optimized height of the Canarsie bench walls, and the presence of an antiquated ballasted track bed in the East River Tunnel, as opposed to the more modern and superior direct fixation track system that already existed in the Canarsie Tunnel. Each of these systems and others must be upgraded in the ERT and restored to full functionality, which cannot realistically be done on nights and weekends. All parties are eager to advance East River Tunnel rehab as quickly as possible. However, even if it were technically feasible, performing the required work exclusively during nights and weekend outages would likely drag the project out over the course of say 10, 15 years. Throughout this time, resources would be diverted from other projects, including East Side Access and Penn Station Access. State of good repair work would be delayed, and the uncertainty of potential unplanned outages would hang over riders for many years, to say nothing of the additional cost. Now, Amtrak is open to and welcomes alternative approaches and innovative means and methods of delivering the full scope of the East River Tunnel rehab project better, faster, and cheaper. For nearly 2 years, Amtrak, MTA, and NJ Transit engineers have been meeting and working together to explore the potential feasibility of such concepts, including the Canarsie methods. This cooperative work has been useful, as concepts that improve upon the original plan are being incorporated into the design. We're working with MTA to further develop these concepts and continue supporting their work on the East Side Access Program, which must be completed before ERT rehab can begin. Specific elements of that project, namely the eastbound reroute and westbound bypass, will help mitigate the service impacts of ERT rehab on all railroads. In fact, when East Side Access opens and Long Island Railroad trains start serving both Grand Central and Penn stations, it will be Amtrak trains and customers that face the largest proportional impact on service, as a greater percentage of our service to and from Manhattan is canceled as compared to Long Island Railroad and NJ Transit. Amtrak is also working cooperatively with MTA on the design of the Penn Station Access Program, which we fully support. Penn Station Access will bring Metro North New Haven line service down Amtrak's Hellgate line and through the East River Tunnel into Penn Station for the first time. Now, contrary to popular belief, however, rehabilitating the East River Tunnel in place would not expedite the Penn Station Access project. In fact, it would likely delay the project, as resources needed to support Penn Station Access would instead be diverted to the in-service rehab of East River Tunnel. Full closure of the ERT tubes would have no bearing on the project, however, as the timing of Metro North service to Penn Station ultimately depends on the MTA's ability to fund the project and their own decisions about how to allocate its train slots between Long Island Railroad and Metro North during the ERT work. The safety and reliability of our railroad and the East River tunnels is of paramount importance to Amtrak. We continue to work cooperatively with the MTA, Long Island Railroad, and NJ Transit on strategies to advance this work with the least possible passenger and train service impacts for all passengers and trains. As responsible owners and stewards of this infrastructure, Amtrak recognizes that we must act to catch up on decades of underinvestment in rail infrastructure. We've looked for every innovative approach to make up for the fact that these concerns have been kicked down the road for far too long. The approach we're taking for the ERT is informed by this experience. We do not believe it's helpful to put off for the future the appropriate level of investment to ensure safe and efficient use of the system. Whether it's the East River Tunnel, the North River Tunnel under the Hudson, the BMP Tunnel near Baltimore, or the Connecticut River Bridge in New England, Amtrak's committed to making sure rail passengers and the railroads are best served by smart, safe, and proactive investment that minimizes risk and maximizes return. Thank you for offering us the opportunity to discuss these important projects. I'd like to now hand off to my engineering colleagues, Gary Williams and Clavel Crump, for some technical explanation about the differences between the ERT rehab and L-Train projects, which of course are much of the discussion we've heard today.
Thank you, Dennis. And again, my thanks to the honorable senators for the opportunity to present to you this morning. My name is Gerhard or Gary Williams. I'm the Vice President, Chief Engineer for Amtrak. I also have with me Clavel Crump, who is our Director of Capital Construction. I'll turn it over to Clavel first so he can talk to you a little bit about immediately what happened after Tropical Storm Sandy hit. Go ahead, Clavel.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Clavel Crump. I'm the Director of Capital Construction, and it's a pleasure providing this information to you so you can have a better understanding of what transpired and what's about to happen to better assist in the redevelopment of the East River Tunnel. The East River Tunnel, as you're aware, is a crucial link in the access to the regional core, which in dire needs of rehabilitation. It's heavily relied upon by Amtrak, New Jersey Transit, and Long Island Railroad. It's essential to the efficient operation of Penn Station and its 21 tracks. It was severely damaged by Superstorm Sandy, where the flood water reaches the crown of the tunnel. I, fortunately, was one of the first engineers who had the opportunity to go there and assess the damage. Despite the flooded system that we had in place, I recently installed the standpipe system inside these tunnels, of which, fortunately for us, I had to disassemble some of the standpipe system to utilize that as a pumping port to remove the salt water from these tunnels. We had the tunnels water removed in less than a week. I'm going to repeat. Despite the severe flood where the water reached the crown of the tunnels, both the East River and the North River tunnels water were removed within a week, which provided service therein. The thing is, so increasingly frequent unplanned delays and disruption caused by Amtrak, which is caused by the damage to New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroad. We need to maintain the integrity of these tunnels because the chemical left behind by the salt water is causing damaging from the chloride to the existing concrete and the reinforcement thereto. The tunnels must be rebuilt to the 21st century standard to eliminate most delays and to caused by the infrastructure. Sandy made the issues worse. The water intrusion, the spoiling of the concrete, the bench wall deterioration, the cable failures that we're experiencing, the ice buildup. Actually, I tried to do a patch job I tried to fix the roof of the tunnels, of which you can see, by putting a waterproofing membrane on top of the roof to divert the water from the catenary system. The water was coming in so much after the storm and even presently that I had to install portholes to divert the water from the catenary system so we could maintain the integrity of the operation. We're still doing that as we presently can, and the drainage and the signal problems which is causing the time delay. We're feverishly closely working with the MTA group to make sure that we minimize the exposure and try to eliminate the best way we can the delays that is caused by train operation. So Garrett, I turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Clavel. All right, so what I'm going to show you here is really why we see both what's been done in the Canarsie Tunnel and what we're planning on doing as apples and oranges. You've got completely different scopes. There are a few things that we have adopted from working with our MTA partners, and I'll highlight those, but they really are two different projects, two different scopes. And I'm going to talk about a couple of the key areas that Jano mentioned previously. The first one is being the 12,000 volt cables that power the entire Northeast corridor that run through these tunnels. There is no engineered jacket that you can wrap around these cables to protect them should they short or explode. The only way to protect them is by encasing them in concrete. That protects, obviously, the passengers and our employees. The picture that you see on your right-hand side is the result of a explosion in a splicing cabinet where the wires were actually spliced and the door blew off, and you can see what it did to the escalator. Portions of these cables are circa 1930. Portions have been replaced, portions haven't been. We have to protect these cables to the NFPA 130 spec. That's the National Fire Protection Association. And as I said before, there is no other way to protect these 12,000 volt cables. The concrete minimizes any impact due to explosion. It basically controls the energy. Go ahead, Craig. So in order to not only to house these cables, we have to improve. And this picture depicts the improvements we're going to make in the emergency egress, excuse me, should there ever be an event in the tunnel and we have to evacuate a train. The existing bench walls are higher than the floor of the passenger cars, and therefore passengers have to step up nearly 2 feet when exiting. What this picture doesn't show that you may see in others is there's also a lot of equipment and so forth that clutters the walkway on top of the bench wall. The future, we will put the bench wall down to floor level, as you can see on the left side, and then on the right side we'll have signals, equipment, and also where we are adopting something from the L train, we will have less voltage cables, communication cables, CCTV cables that will be attached to the sidewall and out of the way. They won't be in the trays that the L train tunnel used because of it would, again, further prevent any egress, clutter the space. These will be actually in a tray that will be attached right to the edge of the tunnel. So you can see that this is another reason why, again, we're adding to the safety of our customers and passengers, everybody's customers and passengers, by this studies show that by having the level bench wall with the floor of the passenger car, it will speed up the egress by 50%. Go ahead, Craig. Another key factor and difference in scope. Right now, all the ERTs are ballasted track. This is not the new modern way of putting the track in these tunnels and improving drainage. The picture on the left shows you the ballasted track on top. The picture on the right shows you the direct fixation, which is what we intend to go to. Now, there's several issues. First, let me point out the picture on the bottom in the middle is recent work we did in the North River Tunnel, just to further rehab that tunnel until we can replace it or redo it, rehab it. You can see the water in the bottom of the tunnel, and that is due to the poor drainage. The ballast ends up following the drains. You don't have that issue, obviously, with the direct fixation. So the issue why you have to do this all at once is we will be maximizing, optimizing our alignment. And the alignment is how the track is situated. Because we have to have certain clearance and want to maximize the clearance between the top of the cars and the catenary, and again, line up with the new bench walls and provide clearance for different size cars, we have to try to lower that as close as possible, the rail as close as possible to the concrete that we can. Because there'll be differentials in that alignment as we progress through the tunnel, to have to make sure that we have safe transition between the old alignment and the new alignment on a nightly or weekend basis is not possible. It would prevent, at the minimum, significant speed restrictions, and at the maximum, it would again create an unsafe situation. Go ahead, Craig. And this kind of gives you the indication of that. Again, what we are trying to do when we rehab these tunnels is replace the ballasted track with modern direct fixation. Again, a piece of that is improving the clearances, the track alignment, and the ride quality. Rebuild the bench walls to protect the 12,000 volt cables and to align with the train doors. Completely replace signal equipment to a modernized system. Again, completely replace all cables, electrical cables, whether they're high voltage, low voltage, and of course, update the tunnels with CCTV, every phone systems, everything. Replace, modernize the overhead catenary, patch leaks in the concrete liner. And again, we expect those leaks to be behind the bench walls and underneath the track. And one of the biggest reasons is until we get in there, we don't know what we really have. So again, if you were trying to do this on an overnight or a weekend outage and you get into something that is unexpected, then you're going to cause significant problems for our customers. Go ahead, Craig. So again, to emphasize, the scopes with these two tunnels are apples and oranges. We have our effort to fully replace and modernize all of the systems in our tunnel versus patching some is what's driving the year-long outage. Go ahead, Craig. In summary, we believe and are certain that the one-year outage versus partial outages is the way to go for all of these reasons. When you talk about safety, then you have not only for the customers, but for the folks doing the work, no rider interaction with the construction zone, maximal control and security of the work zone. Risk, again, as I mentioned, any unforeseen conditions, trains and passengers spared from the exposed systems and splices. Again, if you are doing nightly and weekend outages, you open yourself up to splicing cables and jointing track. Both of those create weaknesses. Both create opportunities for failure, reliability failures. The schedule, Dennis referred to the fact that if we believed you could do this overnight and weekends, which we do not, you take the one-year outage and you do it to spread it at least a good portion of the scope, because again, we do not feel you can do the entire scope. You would be going to 6 to 7 years per tube, which would further impact any of the work that we want to do collectively as agencies around the New York area. One of the things that I do want to emphasize from my perspective, the amount of work that we have accomplished jointly, Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, MTA, not to mention multiple third-party developers in New York over the last several years, in my opinion, is phenomenal. And it's been done through coordination, collaboration, and yeah, do we always agree? Absolutely not. But we would not be where we are collectively with all the work that we wanted to do if it hadn't been for the fact that we do work together to try to maximize the work that's done. Obviously, as I said, also quality. Look at the BNP, or excuse me, look at the East River Tunnel. If it wasn't for Storm Sandy, where would it be? It's an over 100-year tunnel that is operating, with the exception of the effects from Superstorm Sandy, pretty well. that is, I think, a statement in itself. We intend to replace the tunnel with another 100-year tunnel. And cost, we see this, if we were to try to do less than the scope we want to do and spread it over years, it's going to cost you 2 to 3 times as much. And again, that's not taking into effect the work that's pushed out, other work that's pushed out. I also want to add, when you look at the summer of 2017, part of the reason we got to the situation we did prior to doing that work is, again, deferring to service, not having the track time to go in and replace the assets. Collectively, we worked amongst all the organizations to secure the time to replace the entire assets. We have seen, since we've done that, and as we continue to do it each year in a mix, some continuous outages, some weekend outages, some overnight outages. The work that we have done has reduced derailments to 0 for the safety side, has clearly improved OTP to not only Amtrak, but to the commuters. And again, I did present something to our board of directors, so it should be available showing just that. So again, when you start to look at this, if you were again to try to break it down to nightly and weekends, as Moynihan's been built, as Brookfield, as East Side Access work has gone on and is ongoing, and all the work that's going on around New York, we have lost valuable staging space. And again, you can't take it from station tracks because of the impact to the customers. To try to mobilize all of the machinery, material that would be necessary to go in and out of the tubes nightly and weekend would be a disaster. And I truly believe it would be a disaster that the customers would see. Again, thank you for this opportunity, and we would be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Members that have questions, Senator Kennedy, and then Senator Kaminsky, then Senator Lewis.
I do. First of all, thank you for that testimony. Very much appreciated. There's a number of things that I'd like to get into, and quite frankly, being an upstater, I've got to tell you that we are consistently hearing about the poor service upstate, the unreliability, and the inconsistency of the service. So I would certainly like to discuss that at another point in time. I recognize some of the challenges that you have as an organization, but even this morning in a meeting that I was at, someone brought up the fact that it takes oftentimes consistently 9 hours on a train from Buffalo to New York City. That's just unacceptable. And I think as we go into this next phase of infrastructure investment from the federal government and all the work that we're doing across New York State, we want to change that for the better for all involved. That's a conversation for another day, but we will be following up. I want to talk about the East River Tunnel repair and the best approach. And then obviously you came here today prepared with renderings and visuals and everything else. And I'm curious to know, because recently there was a study that was done and commissioned that basically said that the construction could be done in service for refurbishment of the North Tunnels, just as the L&F tunnels had been done, which experienced similar flooding during Superstorm Sandy, and is also used by Amtrak and others in a similar way. What are the differences that exist between those two tunnels then, that one can be done in service while you're saying the other cannot be done?
Yes, sir, Senator. If you refer to that last slide, and I don't know if you can pull it up, Craig, but where I basically had all aspects of the that go into the work. We feel that study was too idealist, that it did not The folks did not look at it from a railroad, passenger railroad perspective. And when you take into, again, safety, risk, quality, schedule, reliability, and cost, it just, we don't agree with it. And again, this, like I said, we're not even talking about the logistics.
So look, I think what we all want to see, obviously, at the end of the day, is a solution, and a solution as expeditiously as possible. But what you're saying here is that that cannot be sped up because we just have to wait. That's what you're telling us?
I'm saying in order for us to achieve the scope and provide the passengers, the communities with another quality 100-year tunnel, it's going to provide reliability and handle the traffic, we have to do it with a year's outage.
So I brought up earlier to Jano Lieber a question about relationships and everything else. He spoke very highly of the relationship between the MTA and Amtrak. We all agree of the importance of Amtrak and the role that it plays here in New York, in the MTA and commuters' daily lives, as well as on a national economic platform. But when it comes down to it, we recognize that it seems as if the state is putting forward a tremendous amount of resources, whereas Amtrak is not. Can you speak to that and what Amtrak is putting forward financially, contributing to these projects? When you look at the Moynihan Station, there was very little input financially contributed from Amtrak. And so I'm curious to know, as far as East River Tunnel repairs, what is Amtrak putting forward?
Well, Senator, this is Dennis Newman. I think we, as Mr. Lieber mentioned, we do work cooperatively with MTA, and we have a lot of participation. Amtrak is committed and commits every day. Many dollars are funding contribution toward operating the railroad, and of course, our partners who also make use of the railroad help to fund the maintenance of our railroad, all the infrastructure. But a large portion of the Northeast Corridor infrastructure and the funding is contributed by Amtrak. When it comes to particular projects, the special projects will have different funding amounts based on the participation and what that project is producing. So so Amtrak is putting in, and in some cases our sharing is still something we're working out with our partners, but hundreds of millions of dollars to these projects as well.
All right, I want to be mindful of my time here, but I will say, look, as the chair of transportation, and I know my colleagues are committed to a healthy commute using rail, not only down in the downstate region and the MTA region, but across the state. So we want to work with you, but we do want willing partners to help us help you. We recognize the importance of a healthy Amtrak system. But what we do need your buy-in to what we're doing, and I will circle back with you on the work upstate, and I may reserve time for more questions. Thank you.
No, thank you, Senator, and we'd be happy to have a follow-up meeting, at your convenience.
Appreciate that.
Senator Kennedy shouldn't be on the clock. You had another question you wanted to ask, Senator? I'm sorry.
No, all good, all good. We can move on to Senator Kaminsky.
All right, thank you. Senator Kaminsky?
Thank you very much. It wasn't all that long time ago when Amtrak top officials said, wow, this L train work is really interesting. That'd be great if we could do it on our tunnels. Can you tell us what studies, what work, what reports went into coming to this determination that you then couldn't do that? Seemed to me to be a complete change of direction. You said this would really be convenient for people. This would be a game changer, and then kind of panned it. What work was done to determine that?
Well, again, we did adopt a few things. So I think some things came out of the discussion. It was very helpful. We workshopped with MTA and arrived at the few things that we adopted. But I mean, we're talking about 5 to 6 years of design, all sorts of, I believe, working with Jacobs that took place, which includes surveying within the tunnels, the amount of work, obviously the reliability issues that have developed determine the scope.
I guess, Mr. Reuters, to cut you off, I guess what I'm asking is, I know all the work that went into your original plan that you want to stick with, but I have, Flynn and Mr. Koshia on the record in the, public media saying, if we could do this L-train plan, that'd be great. Now you're saying you cannot do that. Did you have a third-party study or any type of official work to then say that now this is not workable? How did you get from here to there?
No, well, I think that, again, both Mr. Koshia and Mr. Flynn committed to us taking a look at it, working with MTA to try to adopt it. But again, we had our engineers, we had engineers, consultants, and so forth that looked at it. And when we came to the conclusion, again, it's driven by the scope, Senator. So when we look at the scope that we want to do and our experience, both in New York Penn Station and in the B&P Tunnel and a few other locations where we have, again, tried to do things under traffic, and then basically changed our methods to continuous outage so that we could provide the results we want to provide.
Is there an official report where you reach that conclusion based on whatever evidence you determine?
I don't know that there's a written report.
Okay. And
I believe there are written responses to MTA.
Sure, I've seen them. I know what the conclusion is. I'm just interested in what got you there. The London Bridge report, however, lists 7 different ways, apart from the L-train method, of dealing with the racking you have an issue with. It says that it's completely doable in the Hudson River tunnels. It should be doable in the East River tunnels. But you say they didn't look at it from a commuter train perspective. I don't know what other train perspective they're looking at it from. They were commissioned by the Gateway Project to do this. It seems to me that that report provides ample evidence outside of MTA's own conclusions that this is very doable.
Well, no, sir, we didn't think it was. Again, we thought it was too idealist and didn't take into all the factors.
And that holds true for East River tunnels and Hudson River tunnels?
Correct.
Okay. Isn't it true that you're doing repair and replace work somewhat there right now in the Hudson River tunnel?
Well, we're doing rehab work that will last until we replace them. We completely rehab them, just as we did in the East River tunnels. We have spent considerable time replacing ballast rail and ties in number 3 and 4 in the East River tunnel so that they can to harden the infrastructure so that they can handle the additional traffic when 1 or 2 are down. We're doing the same thing in the Hudson River tunnels to improve reliability short term and last until we start the complete rehab.
When will the scope of work on those tunnels be released?
On the Hudson?
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to you on that, sir. I'm not sure.
Mr. Newman, you said something quite interesting before, that, hey, we can't do in-service replacement, but if we did do it, it would take a much longer time. And which I thought was kind of a fascinating kind of way of saying you can do in-service refurbishment if you really wanted to. But what I want to make very clear today is the excuse of we don't want to do this because it inconveniences people seems nuts to me, because right now you're inconveniencing people. The tunnels not being in good shape is a problem that repeats itself over and over during rush hour traffic. The fact that they're not going to be repaired for years is highly inconveniencing. And the fact that you're going to take the East River access tubes when you're ready to do this is going to blow up that whole project. I mean, everyone is really excited to have expanded access to come to the city, and then you're going to take it away to repair the tunnels. So I don't think there can be any more. I mean, right now there's nothing happening. So to me, not using this time right now is unforgivable. And then using, let's say East River East Side Access right now is delayed a year, you'd say, great, repairing East River Tunnels is delayed a year. It just doesn't seem to me that you place any urgency into this project, and for safety reasons and convenience reasons, I can't abide that. And to say, hey, we don't want to do this other method because it inconveniences people is just funny to me, because that's what's happening right now. And so we're begging you to take another look. I don't know what the politics is on the East River Tunnels or excuse me, on the Hudson River Tunnels or Gateway. Frankly, I don't care. I just want you to focus on the East River Tunnels and try to find a way to do that. The MTA originally said no on the L. Everyone says it can't be done. You've got independent experts, you've got proof in other areas. We're asking you to take another look because our commuters cannot wait.
Well, Senator, to your point about my comment, I did mean what I said, which is that even if we could do it, which we can't do it, that is our conclusion, is that the full closure is the way that we need to go to really repair these tunnels correctly. But it would take, if somehow it could be done, it could take longer, but we don't think that it would produce the solution that we really need. And we don't think it would get us there. We are anxious. We are anxious to get the solution in place. We have, our only agenda is to get these tunnels repaired, have them reliably repaired so that they can, for a long, long time, provide good service to all of the users of the tunnels. So that's what we're aiming for. And with having made the conclusion that the only way for us to complete this rehabilitation appropriately is to do the full closure, we actually think that will be the faster way to do it, because then we can do the full closure, get each of the tubes done in a year and then be done, and then be able to have that solution in place and make people's lives better sooner than we think it would be if we tried to go the other approach. And we have relooked at these techniques, as Gary pointed out. We've adopted some of them, and we continually are doing essentially repair, certainly maintenance work in place all of the time. So having made the conclusion that the way to do the work is to do the closure, we then, in trying to work out all of the different activity, all of the work that's going on, sequencing the work, being able to have East Side Access complete so that some more capacity is created, which will minimize or mitigate at least the impacts of the closures. We'll do the work, have it be done right and be done quickly, and then we'll have repaired tubes in place to serve all of our passengers. It's not just Amtrak's, obviously, as we've talked about. Long Island Railroad has got many, many passengers, and we care deeply about giving them the service that they deserve.
Well, I'll just conclude with this, and then I hopefully, after other senators ask questions, just come back to ask about Penn Station. But I really believe that the weight of the evidence is against your position. There is a 100-page report from London Bridge Associates saying this work can be done. A third-party, independent engineering firm that says this can be done. We've seen it done in the L train. I understand you have your original plan and things are slow to change, but I cannot look Long Island commuters in the face and tell them that Amtrak is bending over backwards to make sure they're doing everything that these tunnels are safe and that there'll be expanded capacity. Their commutes have continued to suffer as a result of this. And I don't feel that you have taken a harder look as you can. I understand you have a plan that you want to stick to, and sometimes in the face of conflicting evidence, that's difficult. And I understand that you want money for a new tunnel in the Hudson River. God bless. I just don't think that the East River Tunnel project should suffer as a result of that. And I will come back when other senators are finished.
Senator, please excuse my ignorance, but I would like to add just before you leave, we have a maintenance program that has been going on a nightly basis to ensure the integrity of the existing system that would seriously minimize the schedule impact to train operations. And this is for the longest while or for the most recent duration. And you can attest that from Long Island Railroad and or the construction team, which are East Side Access. The commute in and out of Penn Station has been mitigated since we're maintaining these tunnels on a nightly basis. So we're trying to eliminate the schedule impact there too. I just thought I'd just share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Kaminsky. Senator Lou?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm going to take the baton from Senator Kaminsky. The MTA said till they were blue in the face that they could not fix the L train tunnel unless service was shut down and the tunnel closed. They kept saying that until finally an outside perspective was forced on them. So to Senator Kaminsky's point, has Amtrak taken in seriously outside suggestions, or are you just so dug into your own approach?
I'll take that one, Dennis.
Okay.
We're not dug into any approach, Senator. We depending on, I mean, we work daily with our transportation counterparts within Amtrak, with the other agencies to figure out how best to do work without imposing or reducing service for the commuters and Amtrak. We are very much focused on customer service, and I think that shows from our performance. But we change our approaches. I can give you several examples last year of work that we set out to do, and based on either Long Island Railroad feedback, some of the New England commuter agencies' feedback, we changed not only our approach, in some cases we moved the work around. So we're very flexible to work with our partners. So it's not an issue of being dug in. The issue is we firmly believe to accomplish the scope. I mean, the L train was impressive, don't get me wrong, but they didn't go after the scope that we did. In many cases, they patched existing systems. We're replacing.
Mr. Williams, thank you for that. That's actually the main thrust of my questions here, because between you and Mr. Newman, you assert that in-service refurbishment is the only way to proceed to ensure longevity and durability of the new tunnels. Those were the words that you used.
Yes, out of service, yes. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So does that suggest that maybe the MTA took shortcuts in their refurbishment of the L train tunnel, that they had completed a less than fully comprehensive overhaul of that tunnel, and that maybe that tunnel won't last 100 years? It's maybe short of 21st century standards? Because it seems like, you're indirectly, even though it's not what you intend, but you're indirectly impugning the integrity of the MTA's project.
No, sir, by no means. I can't answer that question because I'm not.
Well, they went ahead and they refurbished the tunnel. It's working fine now, but what you're suggesting is that maybe less than 100 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, the L train tunnel starts to fall apart.
I don't know what life cycle. I don't know what life cycle of the asset they were looking for, so I can't answer that. But the bottom line is this: there is differences in service too. We run faster. We have heavier equipment than what runs in the L train. So there's a lot of things from that perspective that we have to take in consideration. Plus, you have the 12,000 volt cables. They have 600 volt cables. I think they're equipped for 600 volt, but they run about 480. So I think there's significant differences in the scope.
Yeah, and I would say, and that's to add to what Gary was saying, Senator, is we're talking about for our scope of our project that this approach is the approach that we need to pursue in order to have the durability.
Right.
We're not talking about
my
any
last
other project.
question. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm short on time. My last question would be, you talked about the cost impacts of the different approaches. Has Amtrak considered the cost impact of complete closures of these tunnels? Because that's a huge economic impact. There may not be a cost to Amtrak, but the economic cost to the region, to Long Island residents, to the New York City economy, I mean, that's got to be considered also.
Well,
Your
But
cost
that-
analysis is simply cost to Amtrak, correct?
it's the cost for the entire project, but in terms of the impact, that is why we, having the capacity that's produced by East Side Access will actually mitigate those impacts, and we would aim to have the minimal amount of service impacts that we could possibly have while the outages are taking place. And in our view, if there would be that cost that you're talking about of cost to service, because we believe that a different approach could lead to unplanned impacts and unplanned outages, that it could in fact be worse in that circumstance. So that cost impact is part of the analysis.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
And Senator Lowe, I would just like to add before we leave, one of the most important and significant difference here is the 600 cable that the MTA run against our 12,000 volt. NFPA 130 decides that for the safety and the integrity of the system and the passengers, these must be encased in the bench wall. These cables must be encased in the bench wall. This is one of the primary, I reiterate the word, primary important from a safety perspective. I just thought I'll allow you guys to take a look at this. This
Yeah,
is one
Mr. Crum, and so what I think what you're saying is that it's impossible to encase the 12,000 volt cables in concrete while service continues. Is that what you're saying?
I would not use the word impossible, but you
Well,
are.
that's what you're saying, basically.
I'm just saying, one of the primary concern here, we have to demolish the existing bench wall, reconstruct it to secure these cables. That's all I was trying to say.
Which cannot be done while services kept running. That's essentially what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
That plus the rest of the scope.
Yes, sir. You're correct about that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Hellman, did you have any questions?
Just first, is there any suggestion that the bank wall repairs in the L train are subject to deterioration based on your description that you need this very thick cable insulation?
No, sir. We're making no suggestions regarding the L train work in and of itself. All we're talking about is what we can adopt from the L train model and what we cannot, and the reasons why.
And second, could you tell me what the status is of negotiations with the MTA on the concourse in Penn Station, which you currently own and operate? Are you planning to cede that to the MTA so the vision of a new Penn Station can proceed?
Well, as Mr. Lieber commented before, we are having a continuing dialogue and working cooperatively with MTA and with New Jersey Transit on the future for Penn Station, and as we've talked, as he has talked about, as you know, there are a few different designs. We are very anxious to land on one of those designs and be able to move the Penn Station rehab forward as well.
But it looks pretty terrible right now. I think you would agree, right? With the temporary signs and at least I'm just talking about the Amtrak part of it.
We know that there is work to be done in Penn Station, and we've been doing a lot of improvement work in Penn Station. We'll continue to as we go forward, and then we are looking to bring a vision of a rehabilitated Penn Station forward. And as we've mentioned, and as Mr. Lieber mentioned, we continue to discuss with MTA and with New Jersey Transit those plans, and we hope to be able to move them forward.
So nothing yet on the concourse that can be made public in terms of whether you've agreed to relinquish control over it. Okay. Third, do you have a position on Madison Square Garden and 2 Penn Plaza, whether they should move, whether it's necessary for them to move?
I don't really have a position that that I'd be prepared to discuss today that I'd want to represent.
And then finally, what kind of public engagement do you see as a federal agency that's necessary in conjunction with the Penn Master Plan? What are you required to do, if I may ask?
I actually can't speak to what we may be required to do, Senator, but I can get back to you on that. We certainly, just as a general matter, have commitment and desire for a full public outreach and to be able to take all of the input and the needs of the community into account in any endeavor that we undertake.
Thank you.
Senator, I would just like to add before you leave, and that currently the 33rd Street rehabilitation project for the MTA is underway, of which my staff is working closely with the MTA to ensure that the integrity of the system, which is currently under construction. We have just completed phases 1 and 2, and phase 3 is underway, including the new staircase, what was just recently installed from 7th Avenue and 33rd Street. So this is a work in progress that we are working closely with the MTA. I just thought I'd share that with the committee. Thank you very much.
Are Long Island Railroad customers using the track access through Moynihan?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Any percentage you can share?
Yes. Currently, I ride the Long Island Railroad train in the mornings and come in, and I reach work at 6 a.m. every morning. And those trains are packed, and we're coming off between tracks 15 and 21 every morning, and this is a full train. I know you're presently up at 85% capacity, but we are loading up on a daily basis. So they are utilizing the current system that we have, and we're working closely with the MTA as they're doing the rehabilitation of the concourse on 33rd Street concourse. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask a few questions, if I might. I want to thank again Amtrak for coming. So, and I'm not on the clock, so take me off the clock. The questions that I have are: do you have a final design and a time for implementation for the project now for the East River access for the Long Island Railroad? And what can you share with us exactly what that timeline is going to be now?
Sorry, Senator, and Gary, you may be able to talk. Are you talking about the East River Tunnel rehabilitation?
Yes, the East River Tunnel
yes.
rehabilitation, so they can complete the third rail project for the Long Island Railroad primarily. I'm going to talk about that first.
Well, the East River Tunnel will be a complete design by the end of the calendar year. Right now, the plan to actually start.
Is there any way to expedite that design? Are you guys, I'm sorry, I should ask this first. Are you using any aspects of design build, and has Amtrak embraced design build as a possibility to expedite these projects, the design build model?
We're not quote unquote in the design build, but we obviously engage the contractors ahead of time and throughout the project to make sure that any ideas they have to speed up the process, we would embrace. So, I mean, there's the discussion. The answer to your other question with regards to when we would be ready to break ground, right now our anticipated start is in January of 24, following the regional work, the eastbound reroute and the westbound bypass work.
So you said January of 24?
Yes, sir.
2024. So they wouldn't be able to finish the third rail project until after you complete your work. And how long do you expect this project to last?
I'm not sure what you're referring to as the third rail work.
The Long Island Railroad to be able to complete the access for the third rail project to come all the way into Penn Station. So to access
You're talking about Penn Station access, sir?
yes.
Penn Station access is kind of, at least in our minds, it's irrelevant to this work. I mean, Penn access work can start at any given time and be in concert with the East River Tunnel outage.
Okay, but the East River Tunnel access is the most important to the Long Island Road. I'm getting technical pieces confused. I'm sorry. I was focused on the opportunity for the Long Island Railroad to complete their full project into Penn Station. So, and you're saying that work wouldn't start until January 2024 at the earliest?
No, sir. The East River Tunnel, we would break ground on the East River Tunnel work in January of 2024. That's based on the projected completion of the regional projects, the eastbound reroute and the westbound bypass, which my understanding is needed to lessen the impact of the tunnel outage on Long Island Railroad. The Penn access that you're talking about, Jana Lieber mentioned before, is, I mean, we're ramping that back up with MTA, the planning for that. And that is, when that starts, is really independent of any of the work we're talking about.
Yes, and that's the Metro North access into Penn Station, of course.
Right.
Which
Okay. All right. Okay. So just based on the Long Island Railroad access into Penn Station through the East River Tunnel, or East Side access to be more. Can that work? Have you been able to work on syncing that with the Long Island Railroad so that project can be completed before 2024?
on the East Side access, so the Long Island Railroad access to Grand Central, which I think Mr. Lieber spoke about before, and that is proceeding, and will be done actually before we would be doing our East River Tunnel rehab.
But
So that's the access to Grand Central Station, and
Yes.
and that's totally in sync. And when do you expect that will be completed?
I think I heard Mr. Lieber say December of 22 earlier. But I would defer to
But that was from the MTA perspective.
from MTA.
There's
Yes.
still a Amtrak part to that project that had to be completed as well, correct?
well, working in concert with the MTA, C&D, and the Long Island Railroad, we're partnering with them. We're fully supporting the work that's being done, and we have no intentions of being in the way. So, I mean, we will make them successful by the end of 22.
Okay. And then question, when you close the lines for the end of 2022, you're talking about you're talking about the closing tunnels during this project, or right now you have 4 tunnels to access that. How many tunnels would be closed during that particular period?
The timeline as we see it now is, if you have the east side access, which Jano says will be done by December of 22.
Mhm.
You have the regional work that I believe, and again, this, if things haven't changed most recently, the eastbound bypass, the westbound bypass, the eastbound reroute that has to be done before we can start the East River Tunnel work. That is expected to be done, I believe, somewhere in October to December of 23. We would then break ground on the East River Tunnel in January of 24, that would be the first tunnel. That would be a year undertaking. And then I don't know that we're any more specific with regards to the long-range planning beyond that. But again, there's both short-term planning work and there is a long-term planning work that the agencies all sit down. I believe the meeting is at least monthly to figure out how all these pieces come together.
Okay. And you talked about the need to rebuild all of the ballast and rail systems, the bench walls, to do the engineering necessary to make sure that the platforms are at the right level for easier access. And so you have a full design for this that's already been approved, or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And as Senator Kaminsky asked earlier, we have the same thing for the Hudson River tunnels. They're essentially the same.
But why is it going to take until 2024 to start? I'm confused. If you're already...
That was the decision of all the agencies together, based on, again, completion of East Side Access in December of 22, and then the completion of the regional work, the eastbound reroute and the westbound bypass. And again, I'm on the engineering side, not necessarily the transportation side, but those two projects are critical to make it even easier on the customers during the tunnel outage.
And there's any way to speed up the work on those two projects so that we could move everything along fast?
And I think I'll borrow it from what Jano said earlier. We look at that daily. I mean, our teams, we have folks on the ground with Jano's team every day of the week and working together to first close the projects on time. But if there's any way to speed it up, they'll work together to do that. I don't know of any way now, but they look at it on a daily. Clavell, you want to say anything? You're involved in that.
Oh, yes, sir. There's a dedicated support force that is working with the East Side Access on a daily basis to make sure that their schedule impact has been mitigated or minimized. This is on a daily basis, Senator Comrie.
So on a daily basis, you're continuing to look at refining the plan so you could reduce the scope of impact. So you're open to any
proposal, sir.
Any proposals that could come down the pipe. So has anyone? So how would the engineering group or group reach out to you to offer you these proposals? And do you have a public comment period where you review these proposals for the public to have an opportunity to opine on?
Senator, as I mentioned, we have a dedicated team who is working closely with the MTA East Side Access Force, and anything that is presented to us is shared equally amongst the engineering team, and we comment as deemed appropriate to make sure the risk exposure is being minimized.
Okay. And with the additional money that's coming from the federal government, is there an opportunity to expedite the all of these projects together with the infrastructure money that has already been given to both Amtrak and the MTA over the past 3-4 months?
Well, I think most of the money that's been given to us is COVID relief, but again, that's not my bailiwick. I'll let Dennis speak to that. But the money, but in anticipation, Senator, of the money that may be coming, we are doing several things to ramp up our capabilities. The main issue, as with even when the infrastructure money comes, the main issue is going to be resources, and probably the biggest issue will be with track time. To try to bring these projects in closer together would require additional track outages. And again, that's all the agencies work together to look at the impact on the customers. And I mean, that's what you really have to look at.
Okay. And during the time that you're doing the work, there's going to be a limitation on the amount of traffic that, or the scope of service that would be able to the amount of trains? Have you figured out an alternative to ensure that they can maintain the maximum amount of service possible during that time? Since they'll be losing a tunnel during the construction work?
With specific to the tunnels, I think the agencies are still working together on that to come up with a final plan. I don't know that definitively, but I'm fairly sure that they're still in the process of working those details out.
Okay.
And Gary, Senator, would like to just add a little thing here. There's a regional committee for the track outages by all three agencies, which they determine what type of outages we can get when to minimize the impact of railroad operation and set priorities accordingly on a daily basis. So there's a regional outage schedule committee, and that's all they do.
That's a good point, Clavell. Senator, with regarding the questions before in terms of our willingness to adopt, one of the things that has been a tremendous success is this regional committee between the agencies up in New York to deal with all the work that's going on there. I referenced it before in terms of really being the reason we've been as successful as we have all been in completing the work to get done. But that is a model that I believe the MTA started for that particular area. And in the case of additional federal funds coming to Amtrak with this infrastructure package and so forth, we're looking at taking that model to other regions, New England, down here to the mid-Atlantic, Washington to Philly side, just because of the success of it in New York.
I appreciate that. But with the start date going to 2023 and 2024, there's no concern about clawback of Sandy monies that were given to you? Was there no deadline on when that money had to be spent?
I don't think there's any concerns, no, sir. I'm not fully aware.
And you're making you alluded to it earlier with the new infrastructure money that would be coming with the American Rescue Plan. Are you putting in additional ideas to try to expedite other projects such as the Penn Station project?
We're looking our entire portfolio over. We're gearing up in terms of resources, hiring. We've got new machinery coming from an engineering perspective. But I can tell you right now that the ELT, of which executive leadership team of which Dennis is part of, we're working with them and reviewing our entire portfolio to see what we can do and how quickly we can do it with the additional funds.
Okay.
But again,
Yeah.
again, being the chief engineer, I'll throw out there that the resource, I think, as is the reason for this whole hearing, is the concern for the customer.
Right.
Track time, the ability to reduce service will be the issue.
The ability to reduce service or the ability to maintain service?
Well, depending on how you look at it. What I'm saying is, yes, I mean, nobody's going to want to reduce service. We want to take care of our customers, but at the same time, the resource that we're going to need to increase the amount of state of good repair work we're going to do with the additional funding is going to require track time.
Yeah, Senator, I think I just stated another way. The additional funding, which as Gary said before, most of it is relief for the COVID impacts at this point. But it also, as Gary said, we are reviewing all of our projects to see what we can advance. But the limiting factor in being able to do more things simultaneously ends up being the track outages and just how we can, what level of customer impact all of the agencies, Amtrak and our commuter partners can work with so that we can minimize the impact on passengers.
Well, I would still encourage you guys to try to model some design build processes as much as possible to try to expedite these projects. And since you have multiple projects in an area that sorely needs and desperately needs the transportation upgrades and I would hope that it's a major part of your focus over the next few months to try to expedite all of these projects. I know Senator Kennedy and Kaminsky had additional questions, so I'm going to yield to them. Senator Kaminsky, since your mic is off, you can go first.
Tim, is that fine? Thank you.
You're ready.
Thanks, Chair Comrie. So you just said before that you utilized design build. Didn't you also say it took 6 years to design this project?
Yes, sir. I think 5 to 6 years, correct.
How is that consistent with design build? That doesn't make sense to me.
No, well, I did not say that we did use design build with the tunnel. I said we would be using elements of it as we design it and during construction, listening to the contractors, asking them to see what opportunities there are for doing it differently, speeding it up and so forth.
And Senator Comrie asked you about the bypass projects that you seem interested in working on. And isn't it the case that you delayed working on the bypass projects and didn't provide staff for those projects and have been fighting with the MTA about that for years?
Not the bypass projects, no, sir. There is, to be quite frank, from the Amtrak perspective, there is discussion on the East Side Access as a whole. We're into the bypass projects now and fully supporting them. The project, the East Side Access project, our understanding is there were design and procurement delays there, and then unreasonable manpower requests that we had to respond to.
Meaning the MTA asked you to provide manpower to work on them and you said no.
They asked us to provide manpower that we did not have.
Well, because you didn't hire them.
We needed a minimum 3 years notice to have the properly between hiring and training, especially if you look at the ET or electric traction trade, which has been historically the issue, to have them trained and qualified such that they actually add anything to the work. So therefore, we've got to have 3 years out notice from any agency in terms to be ready for such work. Again, I wasn't here, but my understanding is that the East Side Access was delayed early on due to design, procurement issues. And then though we suggested alternate methods, we still didn't get anywhere in terms of being able to push the work forward.
And in terms of the in-service replacement issue for a second, you're aware that in England, a tunnel that was built in 1863 was fully repaired using in-service replacement?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and that doesn't add to the weight of the evidence that you should re-examine it here?
No, sir. We have examined it, but no.
Okay. Before I move on to Penn Station, I just want to say again, I think that Long Island commuters, at the very least, and Queens commuters deserve an independent third-party expedited review of whether that is possible. I understand that it can be done the way you want to do it, but what I'm trying to tell you is that is a major inconvenience. To be waiting decades for East Side Access and to then have it come but be overrun because all the East River Tunnel trains will be diverted there. It's just a giant waste. Right now, they're just sitting there. I'm hoping that you could use this time now, even do as much as you can using in-service replacement now, and then see what you have remaining when East Side Access comes. But I think the inflexibility is not acceptable, and I don't think you're giving it the urgency that Long Island commuters wanted to. So I would urge you again to take another look at that in good faith. And then last year, I just want to ask a Penn Station question. Can you tell us whether you favor the 3-level rendering or the 2-level rendering for the 7th Avenue Penn Station project?
Well, for we actually could be, have an open mind as to which solution we're going to end up with. We continue to work with our partners on figuring out the answer. That we are, very concerned about making sure that whatever solution we come up with does address passenger circulation, and also gives us the operational proximity, have a solution that will have our folks that need to be proximate to the railroad to operate it be where they need to be. But
And,
you know,
and you're committed to doing a real 7th Avenue corridor overhaul?
well, I mean, we're committed to coming up with a final design that brings many of those benefits that we've been talking about, that Mr. Lieber's talked about, to Penn Station. And you know, we're looking to, with our partners, settle on what that best solution will be.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to once again thank Chairs Kennedy and Comrie for being champions for these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, just a couple quick follow-ups. And again, you know, I appreciate your time and your patience and your testimony here, but, you know, clearly you have an engaged electorate that's speaking with us about these issues. We need to make sure we're moving as quickly as possible to deliver. And, you know, what we would like to see is a recommitment from Amtrak to the MTA to do that. And I know Senator Kaminsky asked, you know, very specifically if you would take another look in finding a way forward that is better than a 2024 start. And I would ask you to reconsider that. I mean, that's a long way off. It's a long way to wait. And there are a lot of issues and a lot of commuters that are impacted. And as we're coming out of this pandemic, our economy is dependent upon us moving as quickly as possible. So I would just reiterate that again. As chair of transportation and as part of this hearing, any way that we can get Amtrak to move forward in a quicker, more decisive manner would be welcome to the people of New York, and we would certainly appreciate that.
If I could just say, I don't want any misconceptions here. And I think Clavell mentioned it earlier, we're in all 6 of those tunnels on a weekly basis, if not nightly. Doing work to ensure that the reliability lasts until these get rehabbed and to improve the service that's currently running through them. We've got work scheduled as part of our Penn Station renewal work later this, I think it's late summer, where we go back into line 4 to do additional work. Now, again, we're not going in and replacing the ballasted track with direct fixation. That needs to wait till the full outage. However, we go in there, we make sure that we replace rail, ties, ballast, fix drainage, fix electric traction, any aspect of it that is causing reliability issues. We monitor it, we inspect it. I just don't want you thinking, I hear you say inaction. We are currently working in those tunnels to make sure that the customers experience good service. But it does not replace taking the tunnel out of service and building a new one.
And I understand that, Mr. Williams, and I do appreciate the enormity of the project and the complexity of the project. But that being said, and again, when we are dealing with the L and the F train and we're looking at what that originally was designed as a project to be, which is an extensive project that shut down the system, and what it ultimately became. And then we're talking about this project separate of that and completely shutting it down rather than looking at potential alternatives. It draws an immediate attention to the disparity there, and it, you know, calls into question, you know, whether we are doing enough or doing everything we can to prevent a complete shutdown and really having an impact, a negative impact on the lives of thousands of commuters for quite some time, months, if not years. And so, you know, anyway, we would ask you again just to take another look at that. Let's see if there's any way we can move things in a more expeditious manner. But of course, we recognize you're doing the work. And again, everyone has spoken highly of the relationship between MTA and Amtrak. But, you know, this is a massive undertaking. You know, we have a moment in time that we are all dealing with. We have the funding that has come in from the work that we have done at the state level, along with what's happening at the federal level, both the previous relief package that came through to New York and to Amtrak with the $1.9 trillion package. along with what is coming again in the next relief package, potentially $2+ trillion that will be aimed again at the states, including New York, MTA, and Amtrak. So we have a moment in time. And so if we can use this moment and the resources that we know have come and are on the way, we'd like to get a better product here and a product and a solution as quickly as possible. So I will leave you with that. We certainly would appreciate whatever you can do to go back to the drawing board, sharpen your pencils, and work with us in that regard.
Thank you, Senator. I'll just say that we, you know, I think we share the same goal. In the end, we're looking to provide the best solution and as quickly as possible. And for the reasons that we've laid out about differences between what needs to be done in the East River tunnels and other projects is why we have concluded this is the best and the quickest way to get to a solution. But to your point, we're always looking for ways to make things quicker. Any way that we can expedite, we will. And in terms of the work, Gary talked about the work, and Clavel talked about the work that we're doing in the tunnels all the time. But the design work for the solution that we're trying to put in place has been proceeding, and as we've talked about, is just about done. So that it will be done later this year, so that we can go and execute and get that solution put in place for the benefit of those passengers.
Thank you.
Senator Kaminsky, I would just like to add a little information that you'd be more than interested in. Pursuant to your concern about additional staffing, as you're all aware that safety is our #1 priority, and it is critically important that hiring additional staff at this time, it takes a long time to train them properly to work on the catenary system and to protect the workers who are working in our tunnels. So we can't just go on the street and hire anybody just to come and work with us. We have to train them and make them properly qualified to deal with the type of system that we deal with on a regular basis. So we're trying, and Gary and the management team have been trying for the longest while to obtain, and we continue to do so on a daily and regular basis, and train them to make sure we have adequate, especially with this volume of work that we're doing in and around the region, to make sure we have the right people, the qualified people who's going to protect the integrity and the interest of our commuters, the riding public who you're interested in, to make sure that they go home safely and we can minimize the accidents and incidents there too. So we're trying to do our best. I'm sure the executive leadership team is doing just that, but I'd just like to share with you that we take this into serious consideration while we move forward, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Where on Long Island do you commute in from?
I come from Valley Stream, sir.
Well, I'm proud to represent you. Thank you.
Sir, I know, that's why I said that.
Okay.
Well, I just want to sum up. I think we're pretty much done with the questions, but I still have some concerns about why it's going to take so long to do. Mr. Crump just raised some other concerns regarding training of a workforce. I would very much want to appreciate the opportunity to circle back to Amtrak so that we could help you find people for the workforce. I didn't know that was a problem, and want to make sure that we can do whatever is necessary to get you people that are interested in doing this work, because I have plenty of unemployed people that would love to be able to get that skill set to do this work. With the money that's coming from the federal government to do more infrastructure work, I think that needs to be a major part of it as well. But I would hope that we could do more to get these projects underway so that we're not dealing with 2023 dates and 2024 dates. So I would request the opportunity to circle back to you gentlemen and to Amtrak in general to try to figure out what we can do to help you with either bringing in other experts or taking advice from people so that we could get these projects expedited. The needs for the commuter, the need to revive the New York City economy, especially now after the pandemic, to make sure that the transportation systems are operating as safely and efficiently as possible is important. So to know that we have a project that has been in design for multiple years that won't get started until two or 3 years from now is concerning to me for an issue that has been existing for over a decade, and especially has gotten even more acute the need since Sandy, which happened in 2012. So we're this is something that's been, we need to get resolved, and I would hope that we could sit down in other venues and other opportunities to try to maybe speed this up so that we can get this done as quickly as possible. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time coming to our hearing. I look forward to having other opportunities to work with Amtrak so that we can improve our corridor for the entire state. Senator Kennedy alluded to some real problems on the upstate corridor and Western Queens that we need to address as well. Hopefully we can do that in other discussions and other meetings. I look forward to an ongoing dialogue as we all get better versed in the need to, what we need to do to try to service New York State residents and to create an opportunity for New York to continue to be the commuter hub for the Northeast that it needs to be in order for the entire region to benefit. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, today.
Senator Comrie, can I say one last thing?
Sure.
Thank you, Chairman. And gentlemen, again, thank you for your testimony today. Very informative, and we appreciate you coming to the table with such great detail, even though there is a difference of opinion that we're dealing with. Just as far as the upstate conversation goes, and Mr. Newman, I certainly appreciate your commitment to working with us in that regard. I know it'll only be good for business. It'll be good for business for Amtrak. It'll be good for business for upstate. It'll be great for our New York State economy in general, again, as we're pulling ourselves out of the pandemic. So we'll look forward to those conversations. And again, thank you for today.
And to Chairman Comrie, on behalf of our executive leadership team, I would like to thank you very much for your offer and your assistance. And Senator Kennedy, thank you for just listening to us. And if anything, I'm sure that our leadership team will take it from here. Thank you very much all, and have a wonderful day. Garrett?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have some testimony from other interested parties, I believe.
Yes, right now available is Miss Rachel Foss from reInvent Albany. And there is also Mr. Steve Strauss from Empire State Passengers Association. We don't have
Bring them both up concurrently so we can have them both testify right now.
perfect. I'm sending them in right now.
Good afternoon, Rachel Foss. How are you today?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Perfect. Excellent.
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairs Comrie and Kennedy and other members of the Senate. My name is Rachel Foss, and I'm the Senior Research Analyst for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable state government, including for authorities like the MTA. We thank you for holding this hearing on Eastside Access and the East River Tunnels. We appreciate Senate oversight of this massive $11 billion expansion project and the issues related to the Amtrak repair of the tunnels. While the reasons for delays and cost overruns on Eastside Access have been the subject of numerous policy reports and news stories, we want to focus on broader themes of accountability and transparency regarding Eastside Access operating costs, MTA capital projects generally, and provide a little bit of an update on our analysis of the rate of MTA capital spending. We think this is important because understanding the capacity to spend capital dollars is crucial to assessing how $11 billion mega projects like Eastside Access create potential opportunity costs for other projects. And I'll also provide some specific commentary and concerns regarding the creation of a new subsidiary by the MTA to manage Eastside Access terminal maintenance and track repairs. My testimony is pretty long. You've got it hopefully in front of you, and it's got some charts.
Oh, you could just summarize it because we do have it. So we appreciate it.
I was just going to say, I have prepared a summary, so I'm just drawing your attention to the full testimony, which has some charts that might be helpful to look at. So first, we believe the legislature should ask for detailed information about the operating costs and service plans for East Side Access. And this is important to better understand the return on investment, as well as the operating challenges facing Long Island Railroad and the MTA as a whole. We asked for this for a couple reasons. You know, in September 2019, State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli released a report that said that the MTA, the structural imbalance of the MTA and its budget, a major contributor of that was East Side Access, and that the cost of operations and maintenance were projected to reach $205 million, while fare revenue would only come in around $14 million. This is an initial $191 million operating deficit. Obviously, this was before COVID, but you know, at the time of the MTA doomsday plans, when you know they were trying to address holes in their operating budget, I think it's telling that in August of last year, they specifically noted in their doomsday plan that delaying revenue service for East Side Access could save the MTA $250 million. I think given the concerns around these operating cost numbers, the legislature should seek updated numbers to better understand the cost of running the new service, especially given the continuing impact of COVID-19 on ridership. Second, we encourage the legislature to work with the MTA on boosting the use of the commuter railroads within New York City. I think that's one potential way to get those revenue numbers up, is to use that new capacity, not just for commuters, but also for people within New York City. And, you know, to that end, I know that some of the Outer Borough Fund projects that were initially identified were addressing some of those issues. So we'd ask that once that project list is final, I know there were some issues around the funding not being available immediately. This is something that, you know, we'd love to see and have it be released publicly so that we can better understand what the legislature is looking at for ways to boost ridership. Third, we believe the legislature should seek a detailed public rationale for the creation of a new MTA subsidiary to oversee the East Side Access terminal and track maintenance. Just to draw to your attention, the MTA released an RFP, I think in February, that stated that they intend to create a new subsidiary agency that will manage, will oversee contract management of a new service provider who would be handling the East Side Access terminal contract. You know, there's issues around the potential outsourcing of this work that I think should be looked at. And it would be helpful for the public to understand why a new subsidiary would need to be created. I think as a government watchdog group, it shouldn't surprise you that we have concerns about creation of public authority subsidiaries, and that this could be a potential way that the cost burdens would be shifted off of Long Island Railroad, and there could be greater opacity of budget information if the public and the legislature is not looking at just one agency, the Long Island Railroad, but having to look at two different budgets of two different public authorities. And to that end, we encourage the legislature to pass legislation sponsored by Senator Matera. It's S5137 that would require legislative approval of public authority subsidiaries. Right now, the legislature is only notified when a new subsidiary is created, and there's some limits on how they can be created, but it would be helpful to, I think, have this be something that the legislature affirmatively takes care of. And I know I'm over time, but the testimony has some analysis of capital spending I'd encourage you to look at. I think in 2020, obviously. Keep
going, Rachel. Keep going.
I can keep, okay, the MTA had some.
And you got a 1 minute sum up, right? Or you wanted to add multiple things.
No, I can sum up pretty quickly. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, you know, we found that the MTA hit record spending levels for their capital spending in 2019, which was very encouraging. They spent $7.3 billion in 2019. Unfortunately, COVID made for a huge amount of disruptions. In the first 3 quarters, this is the data we have so far, they were only able to spend $4.5 billion. We're going to have updated numbers for you hopefully soon on that. And, you know, I think that because capital spending capacity is of concern going forward when expansion projects take a large portion of the capital budgets, that's why we're providing that analysis. And then lastly, wanted to flag for the Senate 2 bills about MTA transparency that we think are important. One of them is Senator Comrie's. It's S4625, that is the Senate's it's the Senator Comrie's Open Data Act that would codify existing requirements on open data in the governor's executive orders in law. And then Senator Ramos has a bill, S 2768, that has some requirements around transparency and codification of the MTA's capital dashboard. And then last, I just wanted to give a brief thank you to say that I think the public discussion around the East River tunnels, hearing from Amtrak and hearing from the MTA about their perspectives, this is incredibly important, and this is why oversight hearings like this are necessary. And we wanted to just give you the recognition that thank you for bringing that discussion out to the public. I think there's a lot of tensions around service provision while these projects are happening, and then the tensions between, full shutdown versus partial shutdown. We went through this with the L train tunnel, and I think it's helpful for the public to see the debate in person for themselves rather than just kind of read it about it in the papers. So I appreciate that you're doing this through a public hearing. So
thank you, Rachel. I will take that bill that you talked about. So I'll be happy to pick that bill up that you're looking for us to sponsor on the Senate side. So I'll circle back to you on that. Now we'll hear from Steve Strauss, and I see Lisa Daglian. We'll hear from you two, and then we'll ask questions of all three, if that's okay with you. Steve?
Great. Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chair Kennedy, Chair Comrie, and members of the committees. My name is Steve Strauss, and I am the relatively new Executive Director of the Empire State Passengers Association. ESPA is a statewide intercity passenger rail and transit advocacy organization that has been active in the state for over 40 years. We appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today on what may be the longest running public transportation construction project in the Western Hemisphere, East Side Access, and the rehabilitation of the existing East River tunnels. Today, the committees have heard testimony from various experts on the best way or the preferred way to rehabilitate the existing East River tunnels. Should Amtrak and the MTA advance the design of a rehabilitation project using 55-hour full weekend closure construction prior to the December 2022 completion of East Side Access, or should the agencies wait until East Side Access is completed and use a full closure of a tunnel to complete the work in a way that is likely to be faster, more efficient, and at a lower cost? The committee members have also indicated an interest in hearing testimony as to the impact on existing Long Island Railroad and Amtrak service reliability if the major rehabilitation work is delayed until the East Side Access opens. ESPA would like to point out to the committees that the Northeast Corridor Commission's 5-year capital plan for FY 21 to 25 identifies only 2 funded projects for the tunnels. The first project is a right-of-way improvement project currently underway and budgeted at $88 million with funding from the MTA. The second project is the River to River Resiliency Project at a cost of $108 million, funded by a combination of $80 million in Superstorm Sandy relief funds and $28 million in Amtrak and MTA funds. The committee members should ask the MTA and Amtrak how completion of these projects will improve Long Island Railroad service reliability. I would also suggest that the committee chairs instruct their staffs to look at the Northeast Corridor Commission website and become familiar with the federal law that governs much of the funding allocations and funding choices between Amtrak and MTA. Some of this is statutory. The Northeast Corridor Commission capital plan also includes the much larger East River Tunnels project at an estimated cost of $500 million. The projected start date is October 2023, and today you heard earlier the testimony that may now be delayed 3 months to January 24, with a completion in December of 2027. Most importantly, this project is listed on the commission website as an unfunded project. ESPA believes the committees need to learn more about the scope, schedule, and funding of this project from Amtrak and the MTA. ESPA would also like to take this opportunity to urge the committees to begin asking the Long Island Railroad for its preliminary service plan for East Side Access. It has been a very long time since the railroad laid out its train service ideas in the environmental impact statement for East Side Access, over 20 years ago. Commuting and mobility needs have greatly changed in Queens, Long Island, and Manhattan in this time period. The Long Island Railroad needs to begin an in-depth conversation with the riders and residents of its service area on what level of additional service it proposes to provide when East Side Access opens. Over the next 20 months, we need to discuss weekday and weekend service plans, how underserved communities in Queens and Long Island can benefit from additional and affordable service frequencies, what the cost of operating a large new terminal in Manhattan will be, and whether ridership can support 7-day service to 2 Manhattan terminals. We also need to know whether the 8 tracks at East Side Access can fully accommodate the trains that would shift from Penn Station in conjunction with any full closure of one of the East River tunnels. Would a tunnel closure plan rule out any increase in Long Island Railroad weekday rush hour service while the tunnel is closed? That's really a question that no one has asked today. A decision on how to rehabilitate the East River tunnels should not be finalized until the Long Island Railroad provides these service plan options and detailed ridership recovery projections to elected officials and Long Island Railroad riders. This data is critical to deciding on the advantages and disadvantages of commencing the East River Tunnel rehab project after East Side Access opens. The Empire State Passengers Association urges the New York State Senate to start asking these important service plan questions of the Long Island Railroad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa Daglian. I like your Mets cup, Lisa.
Thank you. One Mets fan to the other. Thank you very much for holding this hearing today. I agree with Rachel and Steve. This is a really very informative hearing. And I think that I know I certainly have learned a lot more today than I started out the day with, particularly on both East Side Access and the East River tunnels. I'm Lisa Daglian, and I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. Both of these projects are critical to the future of our region's transportation network and its riders. And there are a lot of knowns and unknowns about each, and it's the unknowns that will really determine whether and when commuters will benefit. And this hearing today has already helped to shed some light on some of the unknowns. I sent along my testimony that breaks it down into more specifics about the unknowns and the knowns. So I'll just give a bit of an overview. But as you know, Long Islanders have been waiting for decades to be able to take a train into Grand Central, to take their train into Grand Central, into Grand Central. And now there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we remain cautiously optimistic that that day will finally come in December of 22. The additional 8 tracks should mean that an additional 162,000 customers, well, using pre-pandemic numbers, will be able to ride into Grand Central and make better connections to East Side subways and easier transfers to Metro North with a reduced commute time of up to 40 minutes. We also have questions about the request for proposal to operate and maintain infrastructure and related structures supporting the Long Island Railroad access into the new East Midtown Terminal located within Grand Central. And the language is available and testimony that Rachel submitted and also on the MTA's website further. But the Long Island Railroad will remain responsible for its railroad operations. Metro North Railroad will remain responsible for its operations and management of the existing Grand Central terminals and passenger concourse. And it seems confusing at best. Why is there the need to create new oversight? Who is ultimately in charge of East Side Access? Certainly, we also know that Amtrak plays a role. How will all of the different involved groups collaborate in planning and delivering service and managing seamless operations? We don't know if anyone responded to the RFP, but perhaps you can find out more. We're very fortunate that construction on ESA was able to continue despite the pause on much of the MTA's capital work. And we do know, there currently are 3 MTA websites on East Side Access, and they're all pretty much up to date. One of them states the complex network of switches and tracks at Harold Interlocking, one of the busiest train interlockings in the US, is being reconfigured to improve service and reduce delays. This work will benefit the entire Northeast Corridor. We actually believe it is the busiest interlocking in the US, but that just makes this work all the more important. And Amtrak has said its commitment to reinventing the customer experience on the Northeast Corridor, that it is committed to reinventing the customer experience on the Northeast Corridor. And that will be made in part possible by the work that is being done by the MTA. So why did the MTA pay for the entire project with little decision-making ability and also get stuck with the cost of overruns and delays caused by Amtrak, which according to Newsday were $340 million between 2014 and 2018 alone. More Long Island Railroad passengers will ride through the tunnels and certainly benefit, but Amtrak, the entire Northeast Corridor, are the clear winners here. So we think that in addition to determining better decision-making and fiscal models for the future, another helpful project postmortem would be assessing Amtrak's contributions to delays and how things can be done differently and better in the future. There are some significant projects that MTA and Amtrak have going forward in the future, including Penn Access, which will bring transit access and equity to parts of the Bronx, such as Co-op City, that have never had a train station. So looking at lessons learned and applying them going forward will be critical to helping keep costs lower and reducing the impacts on riders. Of course, the East River tunnels has been the topic of conversation of the last hour and change, several hours actually of this morning. And we agree that there should have been, particularly over the last year of the pandemic, some time spent looking at the options presented by the L and F train racking system option. And we're perplexed as well as to why that work, the study has not been undertaken. We think that a golden opportunity was lost. We know Senator Kaminsky has been a vocal supporter of moving construction forward and looking expeditiously and looking at ways to move that quickly, moving that forward as quickly as possible. And we think that even studying which component parts could be advanced using even more of a hybrid approach could benefit commuters, could benefit the project, and should have been done over the past year. So there's still some time to get it right, but there's no time to wait. Circumstance should dictate construction practice, but then Amtrak must work better with the MTA and the outside parties starting now to ascertain if repair in place will work at all, partially in its entirety, or what would need to be done to make it so. And at the same time, plans for Penn Access must continue to finally bring transit access and equity to the Bronx. At the same time that we're looking at ways to continue to reduce fares and throughout the city and throughout the rail network that is so essential to our city and our region. And Senator Comrie, more on that to come in the weeks ahead. I promise you we'll have something for you very shortly. Our nation's leaders are focused on infrastructure and jobs, and we should be too. These projects will be key to getting our region back on its feet, bringing riders back on board. And thank you for your efforts in these matters.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Evelyn. Edward Valenti, Mr. President, how are you? Your turn.
Good afternoon, Chairs Kennedy and Comrie. I heard a lot of good information at this hearing. I learned a lot today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify. Also, good afternoon to the distinguished members of the New York State Standing Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions. As you know, I'm Edward Valenti, the General Chairman of ACRE, here today to speak on behalf of the approximately 1,600 essential Metro-North Railroad operating craft employees represented by the Association of Commuter Rail Employees. Our entitles are, we have various locals underneath one labor organization. Our titles are conductors, engineers, power directors, rail traffic controllers, signalmen, yard masters, and assistant station masters, all united under ACRE. ACRE works with the MTA and Metro North Railroad management to build and operate what we believe is universally recognized as the premier commuter railroad in America. Our members are also essential workers. Throughout the entirety of the COVID-19 pandemic, ACRE members have heeded the call at great personal risk in order to ensure that the trains continue to operate so that first responders, healthcare professionals, and healthcare professionals had the transportation required to fight back against the pandemic. And now we're ready to face the state's imminent reopening. And our team looks forward to working with the railroad in all capacities to facilitate this process. To this end, we thank your committee for the opportunity to testify at this important hearing on the MTA's infrastructure. Among the major projects expanding the footprint of public transit throughout the city, Penn Station Access is critical infrastructure project, which when completed will function as the gateway to Penn Station for the commuters Metro North carries from the Bronx and beyond. ACRE strongly supports Penn Station Access. Specifically, this new link will bring the Metro North New Haven line service down Amtrak's Hellgate line through the East River Tunnel into Penn Station. This project will also lead to an important expansion in our service in transit-starved communities in the Bronx with 4 new stations: Hunts Point, Parkchester, Morris Park, and Co-op City. They're all proposed on the route. Expanding the Metro North footprint in the East Bronx will send economic opportunities in these communities through easier access to the greater public transit network. And it will further encourage residents to ditch cars and congestion. In addition, the creation of new line will lead to more job opportunities for the railroad. Conductors, engineers, rail traffic controllers, signal maintainers, and more, allowing us to serve a growing transit need while continuing to prove that we are the best at what we do. While we look forward to this future, in the short term, we must focus on the imminent reopening of the state and city. More and more commuters are returning to their workplace, while restaurants are increasing their capacity and entertainment venues are reopening their doors, thankfully. However, the Metro North service schedule has lagged behind both Long Island Railroad and the subways, which have both returned to a robust service schedule. In addition to a more efficient service and improved social distancing, as people are spread out across a larger number of trains, restoration of a pre-pandemic schedule sends a highly visible signal that New York is back in business. In this new era of high mobility, remote work, and video conferences, if people believe our transit system is neither safe nor efficient, it will only encourage them to leave the metropolitan region. ACRE thus strongly encourages Metro North to formally take steps towards a restoration to pre-pandemic service levels. ACRE is committed to improving the quality of service our members provide to a growing number of riders. We believe that the future of public commuter rail transportation requires an alliance between the MTA, its employees, elected officials, and the public we all serve. With your assistance and oversight, we are committed to working with all railway stakeholders to continue to expand and improve the safe, efficient service that taxpayers and riding public expect and deserve. I thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to answering any questions the panel may have.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? No, I don't see any questions. I want to thank all of you. I want to take the opportunity to look over your testimony. Lisa has some interesting points, and Steve, and Ed, we are continuing to try to work to make sure that ACRE is respected with the MTA and the Amtrak, to do everything we can to make sure your workers who are unfortunately been assaulted at record numbers, we're trying to get that bill passed as well. I would hope that our colleagues understand that assault on MTA and Metro North employees should be respected and dealt with. as forcefully as possible to make sure that justice is done. And then we're going to continue to work to try to get Amtrak to understand that we need to have some more synergy. I'm very disappointed in a 2024 start on a project that should have happened since 2012 to 2013. So we're going to continue to try to figure out a way to establish cooperation and collaboration to try to make these things happen. But thank you for your testimony. Thank you for continuing to outreach to us with your ideas and concerns. And I look forward to working with all of you, and welcome, Steve, to this process at this level that I know you've been around in transportation before. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Hey, Chairman, I would just like to echo that same sentiment. And, Ed Valenti, always great to see you. Thank you for your tremendous leadership with ACRE. We work very closely in the Metro North issues. We recognize, how this East Side Access project, as well as, a lot of the issues dealing in the Bronx, is going to have an impact on you and your membership. And I just want to thank you for your leadership. And Rachel and Steve and Lisa, we couldn't do the work we do without your input and without your leadership out in the community. And we've been working together, at least in this capacity, for the last several years, and we've gotten major accomplishments. We've come full circle. If you think about just what we've done in the last 2 years and 4 months, I could start a list of accomplishments that could last another hour here, and I won't do that, but we all know what they are. And it's only because of your advocacy. So we truly thank you and look forward to our continued work together.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you all.
Great.
Thank you for your leadership. It's really through you all that the work has gotten done.
We all have to do it. We're all in this together to try to improve opportunities for our constituents. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Do we have any other folks that are scheduled to testify?
There are none other, Senator.
All right, great. Well, in that case, I want to thank everyone for participating in this hearing. A lot was said and a lot of information was shared. I think we've established a working relationship with Amtrak that we're going to have to continue to foster and continue to raise these issues so that we can provide services for our consumers. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe, get vaccinated. Take care.